Hey guys, how's it going? I just wanted to make a video about masks since that is the hot debate issue going on right now. And now that you've clicked on it and you started to watch it, I'll be honest with you, that was a little bit of clickbait and it was just an excuse to talk about values, because some of y'all seem to forget what values are, what they mean. But kind of just being cheeky, it does actually pertain to this whole mask thing and what's going on right now. How it applies to our values, how it applies to Kung Fu. And the reason I'm making this video actually has a lot to do with my values personally as well. So let me explain. I'll start off by explaining to you guys what some values are that what we teach, our 6 core values that we teach in our program to our black sashes and our black belts, and we call these our black sash values, right? So this is what I teach. Now I've made this video separate from our school site and on kind of my own site, because I'm not sure that all of our members of our school share these values in the same order. They all practice them, they all study them, but maybe not in the same order. And the order of values are very important because that will typically show how people will act. And a lot of times we have these conflicts and we get really nasty, we argue with each other, we don't ask ourselves, why is someone acting that way? Why are they acting this way? Why are they not agreeing with me? And it's not because they're not a good person. A lot of times it's just because their values are not aligned with your values, right? And that's what gives life its variety. We can't all act with the same values in the same order, because then we're not actually going to have proper relationships, right? We're not going to be learning things off each other. So these are my values that I'm hoping that you'll watch us all the way through. These are all, it does pertain to what's going on right now, our COVID situation and our, these masks and social distancing and all this stuff that people are arguing about. And the reason I made this video was for myself, for my first value there at the top. So the order I place these values in, these black sash values we follow, is very important. We have to act, when we have a set of values, we have to identify which ones are really, really important to us and which ones are, kind of just things that we like. And if we like them, we don't hold to them, well, they're not really values, they're more like hobbies. They're ideas that we like, right? Values are things you have in place that you'll stick to even when it's difficult. And integrity is the first one. Integrity is my highest value, and I find that that's the value that holds them all together. Now when people hear integrity, sometimes they think of like, oh yeah, integrity just means you be honest and your word is your bond. Well, that's not really my definition of integrity, right? Because not everyone does that, but that doesn't mean you can't have integrity. Integrity means that you're whole as a person yourself, right? And everyone has different values, so what's important not is they all have the same values, but they all keep to their values, they understand them, and they hold them together, right? So like there's that line I really like in Pirates of the Caribbean when Jack Sparrow says, me, I'm dishonest. And you can always trust a dishonest man to act dishonestly. Honestly, right? I think I might have messed that up, but it's something like that. But the point is that if he's a thief and he's dishonest, right, he has to act integrity with his character. And if theft is a part of that, well, you can't expect him not to steal something because it would be out of integrity with his character, right? So I'm not condoning that, but I'm just saying that having integrity doesn't always mean that you're the most virtuous person, and you never lie. No, if you're a liar, then you're going to act with integrity with that. You're going to lie, right? And if you're suddenly not lying, well, then you're out of integrity with your character, which is fine. You can change your character, you can improve, but integrity means, establishing your values and holding to those values. So I put integrity up top, so that way I know that I have to be holding all these values in place, right? And right now, I'm finding that by not having spoken up about this sooner, a lot of these things I'm going to talk about, my confidence isn't where it used to be because I'm not acting with integrity as much as I'd like to. When you act with integrity, it boosts up your confidence because you know who you are, you're acting congruent with that, right? Well, lately I haven't been speaking up a lot of these things, and I feel that it's infecting my integrity. I'm not feeling as confident because I'm acting I guess I could say, I boldly say I've been acting out of integrity, right? So underneath integrity then, if I'm going to, be holding myself to the standard of integrity, I've got to make sure I'm holding all these other values in place. And the next one, of course, is leadership, right? So I'm going to just jot these in as we go here, all right? Bear with me. So when you do talk about integrity, honesty is actually a big piece of integrity, but it not honest all the time, doesn't mean you're honest with everyone else, but you at least have to be honest with yourself. and know that you act within your value system, right? So honesty is part of integrity, just not the way that you might think. You have to be honest with yourself first, okay? And then I'll add in being whole. Now the next one underneath that is leadership. Okay, so leadership, right under integrity, that's the one that I value second next to integrity, okay? Which really is the highest one, but like I said, integrity holds all those together. Now within leadership, what I consider leadership is teaching, learning, inspiring, and I think when you teach people and learn from them and you inspire them, you set them free, right? The truth shall set you free. So I include freedom within that leadership, okay? And now teaching and learning are inseparable, so you can actually call them one. Teach learning, and that's my opinion. And this stuff that I'm talking about in this video, I didn't make this stuff up, I learned it. I learned it not only from teachers and mentors, I also learned it from my students. So as I'm teaching my students, I'm also learning more about myself. So teaching and learning are inseparable. They're two halves of a whole, right? And every good teacher knows this. They learn just as much from their students as their students learn from them. But also the teacher's job is to inspire that person to learn more, right? Because ultimately the person is their own teacher. You just, point them in the direction, show them things, and they walk in that direction if they choose to, right? They have to walk through that door though. You just showed them the door. But you have to inspire people, get them excited and get them engaged emotionally to get them to want to learn. And once you've done that, then you're setting them free. So this again is why I'm making this video about these masks. And I'm going to come back to that right in a little bit. But the next step right underneath that is compassion. And here's where I think we're having a lot of friction right now with this argument, is that we have some people that place teaching, learning, inspiring freedom above compassion. Some people place compassion above that, right? Now I hold leadership above compassion, which is why I might not agree with you on this debate. But compassion, what compassion means, I'm thinking it is care for others, okay, but also care for yourself. Very important. And this includes safety for others and safety for yourself, okay? I hold that safety, in part of being compassionate in part of that care. It has to be not only for yourself, but for, not only for others, but for yourself too. And a lot of people, they forget that. They think it's only caring about others, and they don't care about themselves, which is kind of self-deprecating, right? If you don't care for yourself, then you're not in a position to care for others and not in a position to help them. All right. Underneath that, accountability is underneath that, courage and the perseverance. But we're gonna stick mostly with these for now. Okay. So when it comes to this mask wearing thing, I feel a lot of people they get in arguments about it because they place this, like I said, this learning and teaching above compassion, right? So my job as a teacher and a learner and someone who believes in setting people free for education, I've got to mention about this thing, because a lot of people that value compassion more and safety for others, well, no, everyone in this boat, when everyone acts out of integrity with their value system, it's usually because they're afraid. So there's a lot of fear driving these discussions that we have, and I'm talking mostly about discussions online, because that's where it gets really, really ugly. Although there's some in person. If you guys have been kind of following some of this stuff, they've been, some people have been getting in active fights over about this, and some of them get a little bit violent, right? They get a little bit silly. But it's because people are acting out of fear, right? And when we act out of fear, it's very difficult. When we're acting out of fear, we're in survival mode. We're not thinking about values. We're only thinking about survival, right? Which we don't need to do. We need to be living in a society. We need to be focusing on our values, unless there's immediate danger, like if that's what your fear is for. If there's a snake about to bite you, a tiger about to eat you, a car about to hit you, that's when you got to act out of fear, right? When there's not immediate danger and you have time to discuss these things, then we need to be acting more rationally. We got to be acting, with our values intact, right? But when it comes to this thing, a lot of people will argue that just put the mask on because the science says, and you need to do it, right? And you need to comply. Well, some people value compliance and compassion over top of leadership, and that's fine. So if you're in the boat where you don't like these masks, you have to understand who you're arguing about, right? But first of all, let me get to this, because my higher priority is leadership and education. So I did want to educate you guys. If you guys are kind of in a shouting match on these mask things, and you're constantly talking about how, well, you just have to trust this, it's science. you kind of have to stop saying that, because there's not really, science. As I'm filming this right now, there's not any science that supports that, wearing these masks in public is actually doing anything to prevent this virus. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be, because that's how science works. It's not a religion that you believe in, right? It's an established, body of facts. It's a way of looking at the world, but not, it's not a religion as some people treat it when they keep on shouting, well, it's science. Well, it might not be. So I just wanted to point you to this article that, again, you might have, if you have other evidence toward this, then please share it. But this is one of the articles that everyone was kind of sharing. Let me get to it here. From the Wall Street Journal, that was talking about the scientific evidence of masks. And I'm really interested in this, because the science of it really, really concerns me, right? But when you read this article, and I can post this below, but when you get into this article, hold on, it's not letting me, there we go. And you go and you check the links for it, there's not any scientific evidence that shows that wearing masks in public, in a general public, will do anything. It's, there's a lot of talk about it, but when you click the links, which I've done, and I'll kind of just take you through it here really quick. Oh, I got to get rid of my annotations. When you read through this, it doesn't actually say that they've done any studies on the effectiveness of masks in public. Now, it talks about how obviously there's been experiments on masks, and they've shown a decline in spread in a hospital setting with healthcare workers. Well, that's okay. That's great. It's a safe assumption. It's an assumption that if it works in a hospital, that they're going to be working in a public setting. But that's an opinion. That's not a scientific fact. So I'm just saying that if you're screaming science at people, it doesn't really give you the high ground, because there's no actual facts that it does. It's an assumption, and it's a safe assumption, right? And it even says here in the article that was published. It'll say right here, any type of community-based randomized trial will be complex to deploy in the right setting at the right time to produce actionable results. In the absence of data, it has been persuasively argued that the precautionary principle be applied to promote community masking, because there is little to lose and potentially much to be gained. Okay? So that's the argument there. So it's not a scientific argument, it's consensus, and it's persuasive. That doesn't mean I'm saying we shouldn't wear these things, but I'm just saying that you might want to be a little bit more compassionate to people that are arguing with you, and not just be yelling science at them when the science is still out on this thing. But I look forward to hopefully coming up with it, because they're making a very persuasive argument, and they're repeating it again and again and again. But it's not necessarily a scientific one. Now, you guys, if you want to argue me in the comments, that's fine. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a guy drinking tea. So feel free to comment down, but please don't get upset, because I'm really making it an argument more about we should be following our values, more about more than the scientific debate. But as I see right now, there's no scientific evidence. It's a leap in logic that most people will choose to follow depending on where their values are. So let's go back to our values again. Okay, now that we've got that, because if you're putting compassion above leadership, let me put this back in real quick. I'll give a quick pause here. Now, likewise, when you guys are online and you're arguing with people about, the fact that these things, the government's trying to take us over and all this stuff, you have to realize that people aren't listening to you because they place compassion and safety above what you're saying, right? So you have to realize that they're not bad people. They're not, sheep. They're not just doing whatever the government tells them to do. They're probably just a little more, they have the value of safety for others. They put that, above freedom. And that's an ongoing argument that's not gonna end today, right? Whether freedom is more important, whether safety is more important. Some people prefer safety and some people prefer freedom. Well, it's not restricting my freedom that much, you would say. Well, historically we've seen that governments, again, according to their values, will put things in place that will restrict some freedoms. And then not take them away later when people are socially conditioned to accept them. So the argument is, for people who value freedom above safety, their argument is that this is kind of like a social conditioning that will lead to more restrictions, and they might not be taken away later when people are conditioned for it, right? There's a valid argument there, because that kind of thing has happened in the past, right? It's not that the government is evil and they want to control you. They're just being the government, and they're acting according to their values. What's the government's job? The government's job is to govern, okay? Well, what makes governing easier? Well, compliance makes it easier, right? If people aren't complying, it's like herding cats and everyone's going in all kinds of different directions. It makes governing much, much more difficult, right? So you can see why the government would be kind of incentivized and motivated to put more controls on the population. Doesn't make them bad. That's just what government does, right? So if you guys have safety valued above your freedom, please just be compassionate to those that see freedom, a little bit higher than safety. And if you guys are, worried about your freedom, just please be compassionate towards other people, that they're not trying to make your life harder. They just see safety as more important. The one thing that's not on this list, though, is fear. Fear is not a value, right? So what happens is we start acting out of character. We start acting outside our values when we have fear come in. And we have to remember not to be afraid as we start acting irrationally, right? Is there a rational argument that, that masks will protect us from this virus? Yeah, absolutely. Is there a rational argument that the government will try to keep getting more control over people? Well, yeah, that's what the government does, right? Not because they're evil, but because it makes their job easier, and that's what they're incentivized to do, right? It's important that we don't act with fear, because then we're not gonna understand why people that value freedom above compassion are acting the way they're acting, and if we get so afraid the government is going to be trying to take all our freedoms away, if we're so afraid of that, we're not going to be understanding that people that are just that just want safety too. So when people are acting like that, don't forget, just take a breath and try to see if you can wonder where their values are. And if they're acting out of fear, then you need to step back and stop arguing with them, because you're not going to have a rational argument, right? These arguments, these discussions can only happen when people are free of fear, they're rational. And if you want to learn how to do that, you just have to study your breathing, right? When you breathe deep and you calm yourself down, you can think a lot more clear and a lot more rationally. So let me just spend some, if you guys are, if you're only here for the for the mask debate, then you can just stop watching here. But if you genuinely are interested in having integrity with your values, then keep watching, and I'll go through the rest of these kind of one by one, why they're important, right? Why they're important to me, and hopefully it helps you establish a value system of your own that you can stick to, not just when it's convenient and when it's ideal for you, but also when it's challenging as well, right? So the next one is accountability, and I'm a big fan of accountability, even though it's kind of been warped. I remember, this is a big one. Accountability for me means having an internal locus of control, right? Meaning that when something happens that you don't like, you can blame everyone else. You can blame the system. You can blame the government. You can blame poor people, rich people. You can blame, anyone you want. And that's having an external locus of control, where something is always someone else's fault, right? When you have an internal locus of control, you say, okay, you say to yourself, what could I have done differently in this situation? And that ultimately that will bring things back into your control, because you can't control what other people do, what other people say. You can only control your reaction to it, right? So this has kind of been warped. Accountability now, when I say accountability, I guess I mean self-accountability, and some people kind of twist it and being like, yeah, accountability is great. We have to hold other people accountable. That's not really what I mean by accountability. Accountability means doing what the best you can do. Doing your best first, keeping your own stuff in order, educating yourself before you go out and you try to educate everyone else, right? Cleaning up your own mess before you try to go yell at other people to clean up their mess, or being the change you want to see in the world, rather than going and scream the change that you want to see in everyone else. Okay, so that's accountability. I put that very high, and underneath that I put courage. And courage, from my point of view, is doing the things that you want to do to achieve something, even though it's hard, and even though someone would completely understand your reason for giving up on that goal. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So you want to achieve a goal, and I always talk about black sash is kind of a metaphor for achieving what you want, because it takes time, it takes sacrifice, it's a goal, it takes a lot of work, and then at the end of it you have something very meaningful because you put your time and sacrifice into it, right? courage is keep going to that goal, even though there might be an excuse for you not to do that. And that excuse, you would have got support from other people to indulge in that excuse instead of going for that, for that ultimate, for that goal, right? That's what courage means to me. And then perseverance is just, not giving up, but also finding and adapting new ways to do something to achieve a goal. So I'm also going to put in here, I would also put it, my camera's in my way, so I can't actually see what I'm typing here. Ingenuity. Uh-oh, I hope I don't misspell it on a live. Oh, I got it. There you go. Ingenuity. Perseverance is also about ingenuity as well. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. But what I hope for what you're taking from this is that, be understanding of other people's value systems, right? When you're talking to people, and if we all had the same value system, our world would not be a nice one. It would not be a colorful one, right? And now when you mix fear, unfortunately, when you mix fear in there, it turns into something ugly. But if we all act of, a place of mutual respect and love and recognize those other values, for beautiful things that they are, then we should have some really, really good relationships, right? But if we just act out of fear, we're going to see those differences as hateful things that they're not. They're just people acting out of different value systems. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I know it went a little bit long, and if you, if you disagree with it and it triggers you, feel free just to move along. You don't have to comment below. You don't have to get triggered. What do I know? I'm just a guy drinking tea. So. On a side note, I guess I should add in, because I wasn't really clear on this, because this was a debate right now at City Hall too. At the time, we just there was this thing online with Jim Diodati and some counselor, and people are ripping each other apart on it, because the argument is, should we fine people for this or not? And again, it's a perfect example of placing that leadership and safety about where you're gonna put it, right? So the mayor wants to put education kind of first and more carrot and less stick, and the councillor wants to put all stick and no carrot. And it's like, they're both great people. It's just, you got to look at their value system. So if the mayor believes in education, above that leadership part, above compassion, where you put safety, right? That's his value system. That's fine. That's why they have an argument. And I don't remember the council's name, but she put safety first above that education and freedom, and that's where her value system is. Both great people, different value systems, right? So I just want to end with that. Please, if you weren't sure of my argument, this thing is a great little thing to do to keep people happy and keep people feeling safe, and it's really not that inconvenient for you when you're just going to the grocery store. You only got to wear it out, inside, right, not outside. So it's a simple thing to do. So I encourage you to do that, and think to yourself positively that you are making other people feel safe when you wear this thing, so you can't beat that, right? It's a great thing to do for compassion. I'll try to get one that actually stays up. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, just a quick note I forgot about. I did want to mention in that video, and I didn't think about it until I was on my way home. If you're going to do this activity, I encourage you to make your own value list, just kind of like I did. They're not the same values, but use your own values. But it's very important to be mindful of the order of those values. That's really important, because once you have them, you want to be aware of which ones are most important to you, which ones are which ones take priority. That's going to affect how you make decisions when you come to some kind of adversity and you don't know what to do. You can go back to your value system and see, well, what do I put first? Integrity's at the top. Okay, well then obviously we have to act in accordance with our values, right? And then, do you act courageously, or do you act with with caution? Do you persevere? It'll all depend on your order of values. Once you have them, then you can have a better understanding of yourself and how you make decisions, right? So I just want to add that in. If you do this list, what I encourage you to do, take 10, 20, 30 minutes of self-reflection and make this list, find out what's important to you. But make sure you're aware of the order, because that's really, really important for for future decisions to make and future goal setting as well.